Morning, Abotai, Shavua Tov. Just to finish up the series that we had on Hilchot Borer, there's an interesting she'ela. A lot of people, they have, you see it sometimes in restaurants, sometimes people have it at home. They have inside their salt shakers grains of rice. Rice removes moisture so that the grains of salt don't clump together. So if a person has grains of rice in his salt shaker on Shabbat, can you use that, or is that considered a problem of Borer? Because at the end of the day, there are small holes at the top of the shaker, which are allowing the salt to come out but preventing the rice. So is that considered borer? First of all, it seems like waste from food because you're holding back the grains of salt from coming out. And number two, you're using a kli miyuchad leborer, which means you're using a utensil that is now designated for selecting because it's holding back the rice. Maran Zechron Bracha writes that over here you cannot really consider this a keli that's designated for brera because that's not the function of this keli. The function is to allow the salt to come out in a measured manner, not to prevent the rice from coming out. So therefore, he says that brings it down from borer on a deoraita level to a derabanan level. And once that's the case, there are a few other tzirufim that he uses in order to allow it. And therefore, he says, according to the letter of the law, there's no issue with using such a salt shaker on Shabbat. Similarly, he says, what happens if a person has a teapot? You have tea inside. Some people like to do it that they brew not with tea bags but with tea leaves. And they have tea leaves and water inside the teapot, and you want to pour it out. There's like a strainer at the spout of the teapot, and when you pour it out, it holds back the tea leaves. Is that considered an issue of borer? So he says, first of all, if you allow the tea leaves to settle on the bottom, sometimes if you just give it some time, the tea leaves will settle on the bottom, and then you just pour out the liquid that's on the top. There's no issue with that at all, according to all opinions. The question becomes, what happens if you didn't let it settle and it's still all mixed together and you pour it out and the strainer is actually filtering the tea leaves? So he quotes, Maran Shulchan Aruch and Siman Shin Yutet, he points out that if a person has water with little wood chips inside that's still drinkable, most people would drink it. You are allowed to filter such water on Shabbat because that water is drinkable as is. He writes the same thing with regards to this tea. Most people, if they had a few of these tea leaves mix into their tea, they'd still drink it as is. It's not considered undrinkable, and therefore, la halacha it is mutar to use such a strainer on Shabbat. For the same reason, Maran Zechron Bracha writes in Chazon Obadiah with regards to filtering water, even in a place where you have water that has little impurities inside, since most people would drink it as is, it's mutar to pour it through such a strainer or filter on Shabbat. For the same reason, if you live in New York City water has copepods. It has little bugs inside it. I don't know if you knew that. In any event, there's machloket whether or not such bugs need to be filtered out of the water. It is mutar to filter the water from copepods on Shabbat. Maran Zechron Bracha writes in Chazon Obadiah because of what we said before. Plus, there's a Chaya Adam that says that the isur of borer on Shabbat has to do with things that are actually waste impurities to people in a physical sense, not in a spiritual sense, which means copepods, even though they're bugs, most people drink water and they don't care about the bugs in the water because they're not, I wouldn't call it microscopic, but they're so small that most people wouldn't care. What's the issue? The halachic issue with consuming bugs. Over there it says the Chaya Adam that if it's only a halachic waste, a halachic impurity, as opposed to a physical one, the Isur Borer doesn't apply to that. So for that reason, Maran Zechron Bracha allows filtering New York City water on Shabbat as well. Have a wonderful day in Shavua Tov.